So, Gangsta came back with episode 10 after pretty much a week break because as we all know, last week was like pretty much a recap, but episode 10 did a fantastic job. Now, I knew this group would be a force to be reckoned with because obviously they have Erica and that other kid on their side, and all these new Twilight Hunters as they're called, these guys are no freaking joke. They're all real beasts and we see how they get down. And of course, the hunter that they focus on, most of the episode, it was that one chick that was like wielding an axe, and this girl is a freaking monster. But the episode overall, at first it did seem rather like kind of like mellow and chill, but then close to the ending where we have all this death and fighting going on, that's where things picked up, and that right there is what I like because the action in this show can have fit so freaking well, and I definitely wait to see who this girl, fights, because right now even Doug was not a match for her. But the episode started off with pretty much from where we have Nicholas. I believe her name was Galahad, and we have everybody else pretty much visiting Dr. Theo, and we actually had Nicholas hiding behind Galahad, and to me that was hilarious because we see the doctor pull out these 3 needles, obviously with medicine. It was obviously medicine to actually help Nicholas, but you could tell he did not want to take it, and yet somehow, even though Nicholas was hiding, the doctor still got him. But the thing is, the doctor actually injected it into his butt, and to me that right there was like pretty funny. And so now we see that Alex, she was like wondering what was the deal between, Dr. Theo and Nicholas, because obviously Nicholas, even though he really is a B rank, this guy is still a monster, and yes, somehow he's like scared of the doctor. And so Alex was like wondering if this guy was like also a Twilight, and maybe that's why Nicholas kind of fears him. But no, he's actually a normal, but he is the only one that will like treat Twilight as regular patients, and and be checking on them. And we even had 2 young kids coming in there as well, and to me that kind of like broke my heart because kids that young and they're Twilights, and even though they're like very low rank, it's possible that they could be killed at like any second now. And so while everybody was at the Dr. Theo place, we see now that a character who we are somewhat familiar with, Connie, she comes in there out of nowhere, and we see now that the first person she goes to is Marco. And so we learn that these two are definitely romantically involved. Now I'm not sure if they're married or what, because there was that whole ordeal with that ring. I don't know if that right there was like a wedding ring or a prom ring or what, but apparently that ring, that ring has some curse on Marco where he cannot die no matter how close he is to like kicking the bucket. And apparently this curse lasts till Connie gets that ring again. And obviously that right there definitely much scares her, because even though they call it a curse, it's definitely no guarantee that he will live. But it also explains why he was like so desperate and determined to get that back, to get that ring back, when we saw Erica and that little kid messing with him 2 weeks ago. And so that whole story and concept, I do feel bad for Connie, because right now she has to worry about her lover, and this guy is not attacked, he's her normal. So even though Twilights are not supposed to go after him, if he does attack Twilights, that right there does not protect him from getting killed in self-defense. And we see that Warwick, he was like busy working with the cops, because he was actually identifying all these dead Twilights. And we even see now that the guy that young officer that worked with the older one was like asking him how in the world is like Warwick doing this, and even though they said the name of it, I definitely forgot, but we always knew that he has some kind of like superhuman memory, and that right there allows him to identify or recall any face or pretty much anything he like ever read, just like that. And with all the info this guy must have read, throughout his entire life, if this guy ever joined someone's side, and if he had a lot of dirt, on their enemy, that right there will like pretty much be a done deal for them, which is also why, the handyman must always, remain neutral, because if they ever join a side, that right there would accept the balance so much. Oh, and also it was like definitely cool to see the Twilight hunters, hanging out on this roof, because we had Allie's brother, he was thinking about that time where she left him when like Danny here first came to get her. And to me, that right there, that right there was like really messed up, because she had told him that she would come back, but because her mind was like so messed up on that drug he was giving her, she actually forgot about her own brother. So of course she never came back to get him. And to me, that right there was like rather heartbreaking. And so now we see that, all these hunters, they were there. And so obviously they were like going to make their move soon. But then we have, Allie, who was still helping out at the hospital by taking in these sheets. And we have Nicholas, who obviously was not obeying the doctor's orders and was like lounging around, in the on the roof as well. And that right there caused Nina, to actually come in there and get him and take him back down. But obviously, as we saw, he did not stay there for long, because we saw that, after Warwick had visited the Monroe mansion and told him that he saw Erica, and we learned now that in a flashback, like some place was like bombed or attacked, and the culprits here took a bunch of like Twilight kids, and apparently there was one kid named Ricky who Warwick was like very close to, and obviously, Ricky, even though he had fought so hard, he had still failed. And then we have Diego or Delico, whatever this guy goes by now, he had to know that like sister was dead, and now finding out that she's actually alive, that right there definitely changed the game. And we even have some guys actually had to nerve, to like second guess whether, Warwick here actually confused her, for somewhere else. But because of what he has, there is no way he can ever, make that mistake. And we see that Alex now, she was now back at the handyman place, and we see that what's her name, Miss Cristiano, whatever her name is, the little lady who actually should be protected by the three laws. She was like crashing there, and Alex here was like taking care of that baby. And we see that when Warwick had came back, when he first went in there, he actually, like made that mistake for the first time and almost confused her for Veronica, who we are still not seeing fully. But I do hope we see that, in episode 11 or 12, because this girl, she definitely has some deep ties, especially toward Nicholas. And so hopefully we will get a full blown flashback of her, sometime in the future, because I gotta see how she looked like, like back then and now. And so now we see that even though he came back, he could not stay there for long, because he did have another job to do. And so we see that while he was getting dressed, Alex here had looked in his desk, and she noticed like some book. And so we see, right now, she was definitely not going to get it while he was there, but when he left, she definitely, made her move. And so we see that, when Warwick had left, Nicholas was like coming back, and we see Nicholas have like these 3 bottles. I'm guessing that he got one for Alex as well, but we have Warwick now continuing on his way. And of course, he was like thinking about everything that happened so far, but while he was thinking, someone actually bumped into him, and that right there is one of the Twilight hunters. And I thought maybe a fight would like break out between them, or maybe this guy would attack, Warwick. But then again, Warwick is a normal, and maybe that's why they won't go after him. But if that was Nicholas, I'm pretty sure a fight definitely would have broke out then. But now we see that this hunter, obviously this guy can definitely not be trusted, because just like look at his face. He has an evil bastard look, right to him. And so we see now that, Warrior here definitely knows that right there is a new face around. And so obviously, that right there should put him on guard. And so we see that when Galahad was like in the Bastard Club, because right now he's the manager, he was talking to someone in the guild, and it turns out now that that Doug will actually be sent there to work, and that right there would be a very that right there should be a very, very interesting pair, because Doug and Galahad, like, those two are A-ranks, but while they were talking to the guild, someone, one of the hunters had actually cut the had cut the phone lines. And so obviously that right there was the first red flag. And so right now we have Doug and like two very, low ranks now heading to that location, while we have another two going out to, repair the phone lines. And so we see that, while Doug and the other two, were like making their way toward Bastard, that's when they were attacked. And then we see, oh no, at first that female with the axe, she actually attacked like the father at first, and I forgot about that, because we actually did not see her fight them, because, we saw her approaching them, and the aftermath with like all of them laid out with like blood everywhere. And it turns out this girl is like insanely fast, because when the surveillance team or cameras, spotted her, she like already gone. And not to mention when she took out, like those two father guys, Doug here could not show movements at all. And this guy, Doug, he's actually pretty fast as well. And so we see that one of the men, I believe his name was Ed. This guy actually lost an arm, and even when this girl almost had Doug, he still put his body on the line and actually, protecting him, because that right there had allowed Doug to escape. But at the same time, obviously, he obviously messed up, because, that girl cut him in half. And not to mention, in the mid-card of the episode, they showed these lollipops, and then not to mention, we also saw that girl eating one as well. And then we have Ali, reading all this info about the Twilights, and she mentioned a new drug, but at the same time, that new drug will like still at a very, very dangerous state. And obviously, with the Twilights having a very short lifespan, and also the Celebrator, helping out as well, I was thinking maybe that lollipop that girl was eating on, that right there could be that new drug. And it's possible that this drug can actually give you the benefits of taking Celebrator, but at the same time, you do not get that toxic in your system that could like shorten your life. And that's why I was thinking maybe it's possible, like maybe that's why Doug could not, track movements, because she was also, using a drug to like boost her body, limits. And so to me, that right there is just the theory that I want to go with. But overall, the episode was like definitely, like pretty freaking awesome. Of course, that ending right there definitely makes me wonder if that one girl could do so much work, and the other members are like it as well. I definitely can't wait to see Alex's brother fight, because to me, he is definitely, the hunter that I am very interested in at the moment. But of course, I would love to hear what you guys thought about this, and please do not forget to like and subscribe, because it really helps me out. But as always, you gotta take it easy, and I'll see you all next time.